Alright, today I'm going to teach you how to make a paper fingerboard. And this is all the stuff you're going to need to make the board. You're either going to need Elmer's glue or super glue, depending on which one you feel more comfortable with. Super glue will make it a little bit harder, a little bit of a better deck, but Elmer's glue is easier to work with if this is your first time doing it. Also, you're going to need 2 tech decks. You could probably just deal with having 1, but I recommend having 2. And of course you're going to need some kind of construction paper or something. That's probably about as much as you need right there. You're also going to need either a piece of grip tape, or if you don't have any of those, you can take some sandpaper and just spray paint it to look like grip tape, and you can glue it on the top of the deck. You're also going to need a pair of trucks, screws, and a tech deck tool. You're also going to, I recommend having some modeling paint to paint the deck with, and then a paintbrush. And you also need scissors. Alright, the first thing you're going to want to do is take your construction paper and one of your tech decks, and you're going to trace it. You're also going to push the pencil through the holes and trace the holes also. As you can see, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it just has to be the shape that you want your deck to be. Alright, so once you have it cut out, and you can see I've also made dots where the holes are, you're going to take your tech deck tool and you're going to ram the tech deck tool through the holes. Alright, now you're going to take your cutout with the holes in it, and you're going to trace it 6 times. Alright, so once you've cut out all 6 pieces, it's time for the hardest part of this, which is gluing them all together. Now this is pretty simple if you do it the old way, where you use Elmer's glue, because that way you have a little bit more time to work with, which I recommend doing if this is your first time making one of these. But if you want a bit of a stiffer board, I suggest using the super glue, which you have to work pretty fast with. So for this video, I'm going to be using the super glue, and it should look something like this, the super glue. So you're pretty much going to take all of these, put super glue on it, put another one on top, put super glue on it, put another one on top, until they're all stuck together. And then the tricky part is you're going to take both of your tech decks here, and you're going to place it on top of this one like that, and then get the other one on top of that before the super glue dries, which is really hard. But of course you don't have to use these. You can take your hands and do it by hand and bend them up like that. Of course that can be a little bit tricky because you don't want to get this stuff stuck on your hands because it's really hard to get off. But like I said, use Elmer's if you're not comfortable with super glue. And there you go, that's pretty much it. Now it needs to dry, which really shouldn't take too long. So you can probably hold it with your hands like this until it does dry. But if you don't want to do that, you could always get like some kind of vice grip or something to hold it in place. Now, if you're wanting to do the 2 tech deck method with Elmer's glue, you could probably clamp it just a little bit. Don't clamp it too much because you don't want mold markings. And you could leave that overnight. but this stuff dries pretty quickly. So, alright, so once it's dried, it should look something like this. And if you see, it probably isn't exactly even, probably a little bit of overlap right there. But that's where you're gonna take your scissors and you're gonna cut it one more time once it's dry to be sure it's just even all the way around. And if you want it to look really nice, you can take some sandpaper and just sand instead of using the scissors. But it's really up to you. Alright, so just sanded it, and as you can see, it's got a pretty nice shape overall. And there's one last thing that you could do if you want it to hold its shape really nicely, is you can take the super glue and you can go around the edges of the board very carefully just to get it around the edges to be sure that it's sealed up all the way around. Okay, so the deck's dry and I've glued it and everything. So now there's one last thing you're gonna have to do, which is take the screwdriver and be sure that the holes are all lined up. So you have to go through the holes again. Alright, now I'm gonna paint the deck. Alright, now that you've painted the deck and it's dried, it's time for the grip. So you can either put skate grip, rip tape, or sandpaper spray painted black onto this. Now for this one, I'm actually just going to use the skate grip. So I'm just going to peel it off and stick it on the board and then cut around like that. Now you're going to have to poke the holes through the grip, which can be a little bit tricky because this grip's kind of thick. So you're going to take your Tech Deck tool again and you're going to push it through the holes through the back until you can see where the holes are in the front, and then take the screwdriver and just poke it through like that. And that's pretty much it. Your deck's done. I mean, all you gotta do is, screw the trucks back in, and that's how you make a paper fingerboard.